Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Common Council on February the, what are we today? February 25th. So welcome. We'll call the meeting to order. First item, Common Clerk. Hope. There you go.
Your Worship, yes, the first item is 2.1 on the agenda, minutes of February the 11th.
So moved.
Okay, moved by the Deputy, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. Thank you. And all those in favor, please say aye. Anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any. Okay, thank you. And we have two absences. I guess it's probably pretty clear, but Councillor Reardon and Councillor Sullivan are out tonight. So, okay, next item, please.
Item 3 is approval of the agenda, and there is a request to add 16.1, which is a document for a public hearing at 175 Hilliard Street and 88 to 86 Regent Street, and that would have been handed out to Council earlier today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Moved by the Deputy, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing anybody. Thank you. Next item.
Item 4, disclosures of conflict of interest.
Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. Next item.
Item 5 is the consent agenda.
I'll move 5.1 to 5.7 inclusive, and I do have a question.
Okay, so Deputy, you've moved it, and do I have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, thank you. And you have a question first, Deputy? Yeah.
Well, just on 5.6, I know the recommendation is to refer to the city manager. I just happened to be on that board, and I thought that had been with the city's legal department, and perhaps it has. So a report, I guess, will be coming back on that. I just thought we had talked about it many, many months ago, so I thought it was with the city's legal department. And that was on the Canada Games Foundation, and because they don't receive any funding from the city, and they're just asking to be able to separate and appoint their own directors and so forth. My question was just, I thought it was all resolved. Now we just seem to be referring it.
Okay, thank you. City Solicitor, do you have a comment?
Well, you're right. Just to provide some clarity on that, I've had discussions with one of the governors of the foundation, and it was in the context of what they would need to do in order to receive council's consent to proceed. Theoretically, they could seek the change that they're looking for unilaterally, but they felt it was, and I agree that it was appropriate that they would speak with council and seek council's concurrence before they did that. So that's the nature of the background. So
then that will come back to council at a later time.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just let me clear some mics. Thank you, Deputy. Councillor Armstrong.
Can I just speak to a couple contracts that's in the consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
Is that all right?
Yes,
I just
sir.
want to congratulate the engineering department and Commissioner Hugenholtz and their departments for bringing these contracts out earlier. We're earlier than any other city in New Brunswick, by the way. Okay, some haven't even released their bids. We've already got, I think, 8 bids out already. We've saved $111,000 on these 2 contracts alone. So you got to be congratulated. Keep up the good work and get them out earlier. The earlier, the better, because the contractors are hungry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. No other comments? Great. On the consent agenda then, please, all those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any, thank you. And Common Clerk, I turned your mic off by mistake. If you could just hit your button. There you go. Next item.
Item 6, members' comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Armstrong, you're first up.
Geez, I'm feeling like the mayor, speaking twice in a row. Anyway, don't forget, all this time I've been saying about the fair taxation, so I kind of been misleading people. You have to go to the city's website and punch in white paper, and within that white paper will come up fair taxation is one of the issues. So if you don't know what the fair taxation is, it's about getting the proper equipment, not your toaster ovens, not your excavators. It's the big picture for every single person in the province of New Brunswick is affected by fair taxation. So it's not trying to be greedy, it's just trying to be fair. Read the report, click in white paper, it'll be inside that white paper, which Jeff wrote there last year in the city staff. So remember, fair taxation, it's very important. It affects every person in this province. And I want to wish our councillor a happy birthday, Councillor Merrithew.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I have to say something the same. I got a call this past week from a very prominent citizen who wanted me to do something on council, and I know they're watching tonight. And he was referring to the councillor on my left, David Merrithew, and David has a big birthday today, and we wanted me to say that. So if you count the number of bigs that I said and multiply it by 10, then you can figure it out. So happy birthday on your big birthday. So I wouldn't want you to do that to me, but I can do it to you. My other remark is I want to, and the Chief of Police is here tonight, and I just want to say congratulations to Constable Derek Scaplin, who earlier today received the Chief's Award for his outstanding work back in November of 2018. He went to a call and saved a citizen's life with his caring and his skills, and he demonstrated a great service that night, and the family and all his family members and all the other police officers had a little ceremony for him today. So just wanted to say congratulations to Constable Derek Scaplin, and wanted to say that our police officers many times do outstanding events for people, and they do so much for this community. Wanted to say thank you and congratulations to him. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy. Councillor Norton, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm feeling a lot like Councillor Sullivan tonight. If the guy across me is feeling like the mayor, I'm going to talk about Cherrybrook Zoo because he's not here.
Oh.
So I received that memo. March break camp for kids is available at the Cherrybrook Zoo. So if you're looking for something to do with the kids, or just looking to get them out of the house for a little bit, there's lots of opportunity right there at the Cherrybrook Zoo for your kids to become involved with some enriching program at the Cherrybrook Zoo. Also, a couple other things. You can visit the landing page of the City of St. John Community Arts Funding Programs are available, so get your applications in there to take advantage of that opportunity. And you can also tell us why you love your city right up until, I believe the date is March the 8th. I could be wrong on that, but March the 8th, there's still an opportunity with that, and I know that that's in partnership with the folks at Country 94, right over here to my right. So take a chance and tell us why you love your city, and we look forward to those. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sullivan's probably watching to make sure you mention the Cherrybrook Zoo, so thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Casey, please.
Thank you, Worship.
I'm going to say this again this week, because it hasn't happened yet. The Impossible Realities, March to Oblivion 2019, a fun little board game convention going on at the Interaction School of the Performing Arts at 228 Germain Street. Saturday, March 9th from 9 to 11, and it's only $10 per person for the whole day. So a good little thing certainly if you have kids or anything like that, or if you're just into board games. They're gonna have all kinds of events. Some people selling stuff. A lot of board game play to win games. So you can play the game, put your name down, and maybe you'll win it for free. So all kinds of little events like that happening. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Counselor, just a couple for me. I've received a note today, just as a reminder to St. John and Greater St. Johners that the Order of New Brunswick nominations have been called for, and they will be, the deadline for submissions is April the 15th. The Order of New Brunswick recognizes individuals who have demonstrated excellence and who have made outstanding contributions to the province's social, cultural, or economic fabric. Again, the deadline is April the 15th. Those who are nominated for the Order of New Brunswick must be Canadian citizens who are present or former long-term residents of New Brunswick, and they must have contributed significantly to the social, cultural, and or economic well-being of New Brunswick and its residents by demonstrating excellence and achievement in a given area. You can find out more at www.gnb.ca/ONB, Order of New Brunswick. And I would think that we would have many, many, many people in St. John that are very worthy of an Order of New Brunswick recognition. So I'd ask you all here at home, council members, please, staff, to think about those St. Johners that have made tremendous contributions, most of them not really likely wanting to get recognized this way, but those are probably the folks that deserve to be recognized with an Order of New Brunswick. So thank you for that. Just a couple of other elements. Just wanted to thank the folks at Barnhill School. I attended in the last couple of weeks their Heritage Fair. Always love to go to the Heritage Fairs. It's absolutely spectacular. You do see a little bit of repetition, and then you see those few folks that pick projects that are just very unique, and you can tell they've just spent a lot, significant hours learning about their subject matter, explaining it in both English and French. It was pretty amazing, so congratulations to all of them. I want to congratulate the St. John Regional Hospital Foundation for their 6th annual Love Your Hospital Radiothon. I did make some calls and take some calls, and I do thank some of the folks in this room that did donate. They raised $286,000 towards the Ambulatory Clinic 1, which is their project this year. So thanks for that. We did lose a couple of tremendous St. John citizens in the last couple of weeks. Sister Margaret Teresa Vickers died, and I was able to attend on behalf of council her funeral. She was the director of nursing at St. Joseph's in 68 and 69, and then became the administrator from 1972 to 1995. So had a huge impact on the community, and was pleased to attend her funeral. Well, not pleased to attend, but she was 95, if I remember correctly, and had a very full life. Also, we lost Senator Erminy Cohen, and I was able to attend as well her funeral last week, and pay respect to her entire family, and her daughter Kathy did just an absolutely phenomenal job of delivering that difficult task of eulogizing someone like Senator Cohen, and I know she'll be dearly missed. I want to congratulate all of the nominees and the winners. We have a winner here tonight in the room with us from the Tool Library of the 2019 Fusion St. John Awards, and love to have been able to bottle up the enthusiasm in the room. I think that was last Saturday night. It all blends together, but the enthusiasm that the Fusion members and attendees have for their city. the momentum in the city, how great this city is, and how supportive that group was of every single person that was nominated and went up on the stage. There was lots of cheers and jeers and a lot of positivity about the city. So thank you to all of the amazing nominees, and of course, congratulations to the winners. This past Saturday was the coldest night of the year event with Outflow Ministries, and this is an organization that I believe it was the 7th year. In year one, they raised $38,000. The community helped them raise $38,000, and they couldn't seem to get above that $38,000 number until this past Saturday, where they raised $55,000. And I understand that the coldest night events across Canada raised over $5 million. I just want to say thanks to that organization in particular. There's a lot of amazing social organizations in town, but what started out 10 years ago as a mission of a few folks to feed a few people in King Square has now turned into men's shelter, education, social enterprises, construction, education, renovations, amazing coffee, like in a farm, Catapult Farm. I've got to go out and visit the farm. So, and again, we're going to have another example of another amazing organization tonight when the tool library comes up. So, and then last but not least, get out and support your Riptide. It is the big game this Friday night, the Battle of the 506. We're trying to get 5,000 plus fans back out again. We did it last year. I believe so much in this team that at 5,000 fans, I'm going to buzz all my hair off. I was saying shave, and people started circulating pictures of me bald on the internet. I'm going to buzz my hair off as part of the halftime show, and please get out and support the team. They're absolutely amazing athletes, and they've won 5 times in a row at Harbor Station. So please come on out, and it's a great night out. So thank you very much. Okay, next item, Common Clerk.
Your Worship, we have a proclamation, item 7.1 on the agenda, and it's Freedom to Read Week.
Okay, thank you very much. So whereas the right to pursue the truth through free inquiry is essential to democratic decision-making, and whereas the freedom to read is the essence of free inquiry, and whereas the freedom to read is under assault from left and right in our society, therefore, be it resolved that St. John Common Council recognizes and reaffirms and defends the right of the citizens in this community individually to decide what he or she will or will not read, the freedom to read, and further, in support of this resolution, this council on behalf of the citizens of St. John proclaims the city henceforth a freedom to read zone in which the freedom to read is inviolable. I probably said that word wrong. So now, therefore, I, Mayor Don Darling of St. John, do hereby proclaim the week of February 24th to March 2nd, 2019 as Freedom to Read Week in the city of St. John. Okay, thank you. Next item.
Your Worship, item 8.1 on the agenda is a presentation from Mr. Brent Harris. It's the St. John Tool Library and DIY Center.
Okay, wonderful. So,
see the light on, so that must mean I'm on.
You're on.
Mic's a little low here, so just pipe up if you can't hear me. Thank you so much for having me tonight, ladies and gentlemen, councilors, mayor. It is a pleasure and honor to be here. I've prepared a brief presentation about the activities of the St. John Tool Library, as well as the community build, which I'm going to try to I'm trying to keep to a 10 or 12 minute presentation. So I'm going to zoom through because I realize there's probably a lot of questions as a relatively new, only a year-old organization that just recently incorporated last month. So we're going to jump right into it. My goal tonight is just to inform City Council about the unique value proposition and mission of the Tool Library of SJTL that we bring to St. John. And it's also to talk about the success and challenges we've had as a grassroots social enterprise that was started by myself and a few others that has grown into a community of over 100 young and old change makers who are trying to take matters into their own hands to solve some issues that we face in our city. And it's to introduce the community build concept, as well as the board, of which I have a couple of members tonight, which is a bit of a separate entity now. So you have the Tool Library and the community build, which Tool Library did back in November and has now become its own entity and starting up here next month as its own incorporated entity. So our mission at the Tool Library is to inspire, equip, and revitalize our neighborhoods. We focus on that word revitalize because St. John has an amazing heritage, and I know that it's almost incumbent on city councilors to talk about how much of a great city we have. But I can tell you from a person who's not really coming from any status and from no other organizational obligations that it is making a difference at the local level. The people I know in the South End, where I live on Mecklenburg Street beside the Blue Bins, since I moved there 2 years ago, I guess, two and a bit, and for that living on the east side in Forest Hills, there's been a substantial change in people's tones, especially around people my own age. I'm 29 and a few years younger. So that is interesting to see, and so that word revitalize was important, but the words inspire and equip fall into a level of importance as well. To move the needle on a number of things, you need inspiration, and that's sort of what we're trying to tackle. You know, we started by looking at places like this, and I know the number of these units are on your docket to deal with, and that is a hard, tall order for our councillors with a, you know, as I remember hearing Mayor Don talk a few weeks ago about the city's budget being 80% spoken for before we even begin. It is, you know, a very tall order to try to figure out what to do with places like this, where you've got an absentee landlord who's, you know, buggered off and who knows where he's gone or she, and has left a place that's run down. It might interest you to know, and something we learned before we started the Tool Library, and a stat that we focus in on a lot about, is as soon as you see one broken window in a neighborhood, the likelihood of crime going up in that neighborhood goes up 15 to 40%. And that's called the broken window theory. I'm not sure if our chief of police would be able to talk more educatedly on that than me, but I know it's something the city of New York dealt with back in the crime waves in the 80s and 90s, and they focused in on this theory, and they saw a major reduction in crime around some of what they were calling these priority neighborhoods. And so for us, we wanted to imagine a way to deal with it that didn't include going and asking the government for money, and didn't include trying to fundraise from scratch in a city that has a lot of nonprofits and a lot of charities vying for those fewer and fewer donors every year. And so we had to get creative. And that's still a statistic that we focus on, and still a piece of our desire. And what we did is we came up with this. So this is the Tool Library. We opened up in June. The idea is you become a membership for less than the cost of one tool for a year, so $90 for the year gets you in the door as a member, and you can borrow as many tools as you want. We have over 600 to pick from for up to 3 days at a time. So to kind of put that in basic terms, you come in on Friday, you borrow the drywall lift, the drywall tools, the drywall gun, and a bunch of other things, whatever we have. You go home, you tear out the drywall in that unit that you need to renovate, and you bring it back, bring all the tools back on Monday, just like a library book, right? And so you think about that, one drill costs $100, right? So for $100, you're getting a major value proposition. And in this city, where the average age of a house is like pre-1940, you can't even look at a house without swinging a hammer at it. So it is just one of those things that we're all going to have to figure out how to deal with. And we found this concept originated in Ohio as a way of trying to deal with some of the issues in the city after a traumatic event. I can't exactly remember. I think it was a fire. And so there's a number of spin-off benefits. It's a huge value proposition for a community to have something like this. There's many of them in the country. There's one in Halifax. We're built on volunteers. I've put everything we've got into this unit on Union Street that we don't own, that we just are leasing for now. We've got co-op students coming in to learn how to use our shop equipment, as there's a number of schools in the city that don't have shops anymore. So we've been able to take on a couple. This is Alex Dickens in that picture. He's my number 2, and I wouldn't be here without that guy, that's for sure. And these are a couple of co-op students from Harborview. We're sort of the overflow from their shop. They do have a good shop there at Harborview, but they have a lot of students interested in their courses and only so many seats.
I'm distracted by the donuts, Brian.
Yeah, and that's Uptown Donuts. That's my friend Melissa, so she started up in that market, as many of you would be aware. This is the shop, so there's the tool component. You borrow the tools, take them home. Then there's we kind of focus on a market of people who would not just need to borrow the tools, but need a place to work in. So I live in an apartment, and I'm lucky enough to have a little garage shed that I can work out of. Most of us who live in apartments in Uptown don't have that, and you certainly can't store any tools in our apartment, and nobody wants to try to hammer out a set of kitchen cabinets in their living room, I can promise you that. So we've had a number of tools, capacity tools, like cabinet saws, planers, joiners, radial arm saws, you name it, given to us. We've built policy around becoming a member and utilizing these tools, around safety, around protocol, to get access to that. But once you've gone through that process to get familiar to use the tools safely, that is yours to use. And so we've got over 60 members in there. We had somebody come from back from Alberta with no furniture that has almost totally refurnished their entire apartment with just stuff that they've built in the shop, from a bed to bookshelves, you name it. So that's been really cool to see. You know, what A to Z rentals and Ready Rentals are these kind of common themes, like do you rent tools? And yes, that's part of it, but one neat difference is that tool libraries make members, right? A to Z rentals and businesses like that, they create customers, and they deal with capacity equipment and machinery that we're never going to be able to store. That's not our market. But creating a member is almost like creating an interested citizen who's taking matters into their own hands. And so that language is important for us. So we always use the number, we have a whole hashtag we do on Mondays on our social media called Member Made Monday. And so we're just highlighting the work of local artisans who are doing really unique things. I've already spoken a little bit about the value proposition, so I'm not going to hit on that again. You know, one thing is the idea of environmentalism. So one lithium-ion battery starts in the Congo, goes to France to be refined, goes to China to be assembled into a battery, comes back to San Diego and gets off a boat, drives across the country and goes to Home Depot. And it goes to most people's garages and sits, and it doesn't get used. Right? That's a ton of capacity you're putting into a tool to not use it. And so the idea of sharing economy is that let's make it so that a person who only needs a drill for those 2 hours a year can just borrow it, right? So there's actually a measurable environmental difference that you can deduce from tool libraries that has been well documented. This is just one little graphic that I threw in here. We've seen some interesting social enterprises start up or begin to start up. That's coming soon. Precious Plastic SJ. One of our employees is starting up an uptown recycling business coming soon, so look for that. That's been interesting. I realize I'm zooming through. We've had classes occur with local pros like Mike from Pinnacle Painting, Mike Lively, who was nominated for a Fusion Award, so he's kind of embodying some of that youthful energy as a tradesman, coming in teaching people the basics of painting in his trade and things like that. Ladies' nights always sell out.
Oh.
The ladies are our most valuable member stream, and they always come to the nights. And we have a Red Seal cabinet maker who works for Clayton Woodworking, a local company, and she leads that. So that's been really cool to see it led by women, for women. Yeah. I don't want to talk too much about this because I really do want to show this community build piece. We've had some good success. Over 120 members now in 8 months, 1,400 completed loans, 12 renovations supported. 2 businesses have been fully renovated, so that's Visitors on Union, a local shop, as well as the one more coming soon I said there was Shamrock Barbershop on Princess Street. So those renovations were tackled just with tools from the tool library. And then this community build piece. So I'm going to transition a little bit. I know time is short, but our desire in making an impact was to see builds happen, was to see a spirit of barn raising restored like there used to be. And we are lucky enough to have, I'm just going to go through here. Yeah, here's our impact goals. We set these goals out, and one of them you'll see there is to do 5 or more community builds. So we did have the privilege of doing one, and we have the recipients tonight. Ada and Marika are here. Marika is a newcomer from Germany. Ada is a teacher at a local school, and they inherited a home that had some serious issues. We'll say that. Say they purchased a home that had some serious issues. And so we had a bunch of us rally. I didn't know them beforehand. We had 20 volunteers rally over a weekend and 5 contracting outfits to come to volunteer their time to do the needed repairs on this place. And you know, here's one of those pictures that embodies what it used to look like to do barn raising activities. And we had this video, this very short video. We'll probably end here. I don't know if I can get that to come up as easily as I want it to. This video is just a little over a minute. It was put together by Hemmings House. We're grateful for their. Let's blow that up. My name is Brent Harris. I'm the founder of the St. John Tool Library, as well as a dad and a husband and a resident of the city of St. John in the South End. And today you see behind us is just a really
big crew of people and volunteers who have come together for what we like to call the community build. The community build is really designed to be this attempt to restore a culture of barn raising.
Cool.
In pioneer days, when land needed to be cleared, a barn needed to be raised, or whatever the issue was, there was a social infrastructure that was almost unspoken that assumed a large portion of the population in the area around the barn or the land that was being cleared would converge to do a lot of work. That wasn't necessarily planned, that wasn't necessarily advertised. Obviously they didn't have Facebook, and there wasn't even always monetary exchange. It was understood that the progress of one family or one piece of the community was important for the whole community. And so over 3 days, we'll end up accomplishing what would normally take a small cruise, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. With 20 volunteers, with 2 crews, this is what we would call a 21st century barn raising event. And as you wander around the site and you see 15, 20 people working on different things, it's inspiring. When neighborhoods and people living in the neighborhoods and communities have a sense of connection, the story's healthier, the development is more sustained, but also more than that, the people that live there want to stay. So I realize I'm throwing a lot at you here tonight with all this, but this piece is crucial for us, and it sort of leads us into, you know, like I said, we had a number of contractors, had some before shots of here, some really serious problem issues with the deck, heat loss through the ceilings in the attic, crazy high heat bills. We all ate together. That was an important piece, I felt. 5 new windows. You know, that was us on the new deck. That wasn't everybody, and a number of us couldn't make the post team picture. But it leads sort of into our ask. And I know that some of those rundown buildings are on the docket to deal with. And I have no clue how to even start to begin advocating for some of them that could be redeemed. But I know that just by starting the conversation, there may be something there. And I know Kev Standing, who's here with me tonight, who's on the board for the community build, has mentioned there's been deals made in the past for buildings that could be redeemed that are scheduled for demolition or whatever. It's something that we would love to see turned into cooperative housing. We've already kind of had this proof of concept where we know we can get the professionals and we can get a number of volunteers willing to come and put in the sweat equity to make serious changes on these. You know, we have worked through some of the legal dynamic, insurance dynamic. We haven't ironed all those bugs out, I should say, but those are things that we've started to figure out. And so it's something that we're interested in. And so if there's any questions or comments, I would be interested to hear from our councillors on that. You know, we don't have any major donors. We've not received any grant, no government funding as of yet. And so procurement is a big one for us. In Marek and Ada's case, they were able to buy all the materials. Labor would have been 2.5 to 3 times as much as the materials just to do that work. And that was the piece that couldn't be figured out, that we were able to fill. For those people who have work that needs done, they can't buy their own materials, it's sort of a question mark. You know, we're going to try to use that video to leverage marketing from groups like Kent's or Home Depot or Home Hardware, but as of right now, that is still a question mark, you know. So procurement's a big piece for building materials. And yeah, so that would be our big ask. I mean, sometimes, you know, for tool libraries in some municipalities, the municipality owns them, and they're just a piece of the city's infrastructure. That may be a conversation long-term worth having, right? You know, but for sure for those buildings, that's something we'd be interested in, as we know that we're in a housing crisis, and I keep hearing that from people who are in that area of work. And I've already had conversations with Catapult Construction around sort of these joint efforts to do some of this work. So there's many conversations starting, but the direction is a bit ambiguous on how to go about acquiring that or starting that conversation. So I'm gonna finish my presentation there, and I know the common clerk mentioned there might be questions, so I'll just.
Yep, we have. I think we have some questions or comments. Deputy Mayor.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Brent. I think you've done a good job. I was at your opening in June, and it looks like you've come a long way since then. You've got a number of members. One of the things that maybe we could do is just in our conversations as we go around the community, to speak to some of the building and supply companies, because if they have any supplies of any kind that would relate to building, you'd be interested in obtaining them, I would believe.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'd get your volunteers to do the work on somebody's house or whatever. So I just want to say thank you to you, because I think it's a good initiative in our city, and I think you're doing a good job at it, and we'll try to help you out a bit more and help put business your way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy. Councillor McKenzie, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, Brent, I think you just got another member, because my wife's probably signing me up now as she watches this. Well, it's a great idea. I mean, you know, people, you know, get to a certain age and they want to downsize. They've got all kinds of tools. They've got to, you know, get rid of them. Now they know where they can go. And, you know, at the same time, you can go in and use them once in a while if you pay your membership. And I think it's a great idea. On the community build side, another fantastic idea, and I like the fact that you're talking to Catapult Construction. I think that there's a lot of community movement out there right now, you know, particularly in the Southern Peninsula and the Old North End, to get some things done. So, yeah, I mean, I would certainly want to sit down with your group and have a discussion further to that, because I've got some connections in the Old North End right now that are looking for your type of help.
Okay.
So thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, just one second. Sorry, I thought maybe Councillor Norton. Councillor Norton, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Brent, I don't have anything more to say than what's already been said, other than, you know, hats off to you and the group. So this is my first kind of deep dive into what the St. John Tool Library is all about, and seeing some of your emails come into my inbox and read them with interest. But I think it's a good opportunity for council and mayor, who some of these have already been broadcasting your message, for the rest of us to kind of get out there and help spread the bandwidth of what you're already doing. So I know Ada's a colleague of mine and in the education profession, and I can't think of anybody better than to be a good recipient of some of the good work that you're doing in terms of that barn raising. So keep it up. Anything that we can do, feel free to knock on our doors. But this type of when you think about the sharing economy, I think this is a great model. So and there's nobody that knows how to share better than St. Johners. So
there you go.
Keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Just a couple of comments. Brian, thanks again for your presentation tonight. I hopefully through both the media being here and broadcasting to folks at home, hopefully will continue to spread your message. I suspect all of the work you do can't be for free in barn raising. You need to do some revenue generating. You need members. So the call out, I guess, St. John is you've got some strong membership, but you need more members. So it's sort of one of the takeaways I took today. The other thing I'd say is I just guess I'm looking to our Commissioner of Growth and Community Development, Ms. Hamilton, to, perhaps it could be a meeting set up there for you, Brent, around the property matching. So we have a property matching program that we've commenced, where we're taking, in a lot of cases, some absentee owners who came to town during 07, 08 and probably haven't been back to town since, who would be very pleased to, sell their property, but they may be pleased to, I don't know, if a tax receipt is possible, whatever. But we've got permission from a number of owners to share their details. So there could be some opportunity of matching up your revenue side with a sale for the homeowner with a potential buyer who's working on a more limited budget. So there's some opportunity, perhaps, Ms. Hamilton, to hook you up with Jacqueline, so we can follow up on that. The other one, I spent 20 years myself in the home building industry. I would highly recommend, and I'd be pleased to make a introduction. I would recommend, Brent, you go and do exactly this presentation as a guest speaker at the Home Builders Association's dinner meetings.
Okay.
They'd love to have you, I'm sure. I can connect you with Claudia, with the executive director.
Sure.
And what I'm thinking, I'm going to go a little too far on the diving board here, but I think they could help you in that, builders build. They sometimes have some 2x10s left over and some 2x6s left over, and look, you can cart them back for $12 back, or you could, you give them to a social enterprise or an organization doing amazing work. So I'd be pleased to connect you with a group of, 20, 30, 40 local companies that could be great promoters, not only members of the tool library, but also great promoters. So you and I can follow up on that one.
Sure, yeah.
And then I want to thank you, two last bullets, just thank you for your passion. I mean, it's, around not only what you're doing here, but we're so blessed in St. John to have so many incredibly passionate people that whatever they're working on, they're working to make the city a better place. And I, really appreciate you and your board and all the folks that are trying to do this. And then lastly, just from a personal note, share with council and those at home, my dad passed away a few years back, and I got a truckload of tools. My wife made me promise that I would never use tools. So, no, kidding, but that's sort of true. But my dad was a woodworker, and he had a shop, a beautiful shop, and planers and all kinds of, and made toy boxes, and just would go out and for hours and hours play in his wood shop. And anyway, we got the deputy and I can't remember who else went that day, Councillor Lowe, I think, maybe Councillor Armstrong, to your opening. And I was staring at all these tools, and I, one day loaded up the truck with compressors and things I don't know how they work, and planers and drill presses, and I donated them to the tool library. And my dad would have been so happy about that. That's where those tools, so, I mean, I know you have capacity, you can't take, but if you've got those drills and those tools and those, what a cool, I was so happy that maybe Dad's tools would make stuff and be used and not just sit in the corner of my garage. So there's many ways that we can support the tool library. I do thank you very much for your presentation, so let's follow up on those couple of items with me, and then we can connect you with Ms. Hamilton on the property matching, and then I think you've well informed a number of people here tonight. We thank you for that.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deputy. Somewhere down there, I think Councillor Merrithew. Okay, thank you. On the question, all those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you. Motion carried. Next item, please.
Next item on the agenda is 10.1. Pardon me, and it's a public presentation for a proposed municipal plan amendment regarding policies related to regional retail centers, and Commissioner Hamilton will read out the public presentation.
Okay, and just procedurally, if you could just remind, it's simply a reading out of this for tonight. Okay, thank you.
No decision required.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Hamilton, you're on.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. So tonight is a public presentation for a proposed municipal plan amendment to policies related to the city's regional retail centers. It commences a 30-day public review period during which the public can make written submissions on the application. And while this plan amendment was prompted by a site-specific application, which involves a new 200 residential development in 200-unit residential development in the East Point area. The amendment will allow this approach to be considered more broadly in the city's regional retail centers, both east and west, and you're going to be seeing on screen both the site-specific map as well as the location of the regional retail centers. So with that, I'll read the public notice into the record for council.
Thank you.
Public notice is hereby given that the Common Council of the City of St. John intends to consider an amendment to the municipal development plan, which would include amendments to the municipal plan policies, including those in subsections 2.3.2 employment areas, 3.5.2 employment areas, and 4.3.5 urban design principles for employment areas in addition to other relevant subsections and policies to provide for residential development within the regional retail center land use designation or a mix of commercial and residential land uses as part of a mixed-use development proposal. The reason for the change is to provide for residential development within the regional retail center land use designation or a mix of commercial and residential land uses as part of a mixed-use development proposal. Written objections to the proposed amendment may be made to council by March 27, 2019. Inquiries may be made at the Office of the Common Clerk or Growth and Community Development Services at City Hall between the hours of 8:30 and 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. And that concludes.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Next item, Common Clerk.
Your Worship, we have a second public presentation on a proposed municipal plan amendment for 1007 to 1019 Millage Avenue. And again, Commissioner Hamilton will read this aloud.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, Your Worship, members of council. So this is a public presentation for proposed municipal plan amendment at 1007-1019 Millage Avenue. So tonight commences a 30-day public review period during which the public can make written submissions to council on this application. And I'll now read the notice into the public record, and I believe we have the map of the location on screen. Public notice is hereby given that the Common Council of the City of St. John intends to consider an amendment to the Municipal Development Plan which would, 1, redesignate on Schedule A of the Municipal Development Plan a parcel of land with an area of approximately 7242 square meters located at 1007-1019 Millage Avenue, also identified as PID numbers 000-48397 and 000-48389 from stable area and park and natural area to employment area. And 2, redesignate on Schedule B of the plan the same parcel of land from stable residential and park and natural area to stable commercial. The reason for the change is to construct a building for boat repair and large recreational vehicle sales and service. Written objections to the proposed amendment may be made to council by March 27, 2019, and inquiries may be made to the Office of the Common Clerk or Growth and Community Development Services at City Hall between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Next item, please, Common Clerk.
Item 10.3 on the agenda is a bylaw respecting the feeding of deer within the City of St. John. This would be for third reading, and it would require 2 resolutions, one by the entirety and one by title.
Okay, thank you. City Manager, you have some comments?
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council. Just by way of backdrop, we will be returning to council at a later date in the not-too-distant future to discuss the entire deer nuisance management program. That is not the intent of this evening. This evening is just the third reading on the bylaw that is very specific on the feeding of the deer. And again, we will come back at a later date to not only present, but deal with any questions that may have to do with the overarching program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councilor Strobridge, you had a question?
No, well, yeah, I have a question, but I just wanted to speak publicly because I believe there's some confusion out there on what this exactly entails. I had a constituent call me this afternoon, and she lives outside of the PDA. She lives out in Lattimore Lake. And one of the things that she had said to me was around hunting. And so I just wanted to make clear to the public at large, this has nothing to do with hunting. Hunting is the mandate of the provincial government. It has nothing to do with the municipality. And the other thing, she raised this issue with me, and I think it deserves some attention because I never thought about it. But the deer nuisance complaints that we're receiving are typically in the denser areas of the city, what we may call the primary development area. And when we get out into the outer skirts of the city, those problems don't exist. And so this person said to me, she said, I would still like to be able to feed the deer. She said, I like having the education part of it. She said she has 300 acres of private land, and she said that her and a lot of her neighbors, they feed the deer, and they don't have car accidents with them and things like that. And I said, okay, maybe Maybe, I mean, I don't know if it's something maybe one of our staff could comment on, or even one of the counselors might want to weigh in. Is it something that maybe we should consider only for the PDA? Because we don't have any deer nuisance problems outside of the density areas.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So I think on your first point, I believe that's what the city manager was commenting on in terms of setting the record straight on who mandates hunting and how, so I think that will be dealt with when the plan comes back. City manager, in terms of the scope of this this particular bylaw change and the councillor's comments on, you know, PDA versus quote-unquote more rural areas, who could we call on? The commissioner? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Can you just hit your button there for me, Commissioner? Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to the councillor. We recognize that it's a very large city, and circumstances that exist in one part of the city may not be the same in other parts. To be clear, however, the actual bylaw under consideration this evening does apply to the entire city. Now, that said, we're certainly focusing any kind of deer management program or even enforcement of this bylaw to areas where we know there are concerns. So through our public survey that we undertook, we really got a clear view that there were 2 or 3 hot spots in the city where there were numerous concerns of deer being in close proximity to the population around concerns from landscaping, damage to property, vehicle and deer accidents. So I think Milford area was one, and Milledgeville was the other main one that showed up. So we don't anticipate going out full force and enforcing the bylaw everywhere. It will be complaint driven, and our limited resources are going to be directed at those problem locations.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. So I need someone to move by entirety. Thank you. Councillor McKenzie moved. Seconder, please. Second, Councillor Strobridge just got you. Thank you. And Common Clerk, you have to move that, read that out. Thank you.
And I do have to read this in the entirety.
Looking forward to it, sir.
Okay. A bylaw respecting the feeding of deer within the City of St. John. Whereas the presence of deer within the City of St. John is seen by the Common Council of the City as posing material risk to the public health and safety, and whereas the Province of New Brunswick is prepared through its Nuisance Deer Management Assistance Program administered by the Department of Energy and Resource Development to support the City in addressing the aforesaid public health and safety risk, and whereas the City wishes to avail itself to the aforementioned support of the Province of New Brunswick, and whereas the aforementioned support of the Province of New Brunswick is conditional upon the City's first enacting a bylaw prohibiting feeding the deer, and whereas the City has been delegated the authority pursuant to paragraph 10(1)K of the Local Governance Act to enact a bylaw respecting inter alia, wild, domestic, and exotic animals and activities in relation to them, including animal control activities. Now, therefore, the Common Council of the City of St. John enacts as follows. Title: This bylaw may be cited as the Prohibition of Deer Feeding Bylaw. Definitions. The following definition apply in this bylaw. City means City of St. John. Common Council means elected municipal council of the city. Deer means any hoofed grazing or browsing animal of the family Cervidae, the males of which usually have deciduous branching antlers. Interpretation. Number 3, rules for interpretation of the language used in the bylaw are contained in the lettered paragraphs as follows. A, the caption, article, and section names and numbers appearing in this bylaw are for convenience of reference only and have no effect on its interpretation. B, the bylaw is to be read with all changes of gender or number required by the context. C, each reference to legislation in this bylaw is printed in italic font. The reference is intended to include all applicable amendments to the legislation, including successor legislation. Where this bylaw references other bylaws in the city, the term is intended to include all applicable amendments to those bylaws, including successor bylaws. D, the requirement of this bylaw are in addition to any requirements contained in any other applicable bylaws of the city or applicable provincial or federal statutes or regulations. E, if any section, subsection, part, or parts of provision of this bylaw is for any reason declared by a court or tribunal of competent jurisdiction to be invalid, the ruling shall not affect the validity of the bylaw as a whole, nor any other part of it. Prohibition 4, no person shall, on his own property or any other property located within the city, feed or otherwise purposely attract deer. Offenses and fines, 5.1, subject to subsection 2, a person who violates a provision of this bylaw is guilty of an offense and is liable upon summary conviction to a fine of not less than $100 and not more than $500. 5.2, if an offense continues for more than 1 day, the minimum fine that may be imposed is the minimum fine established under subsection 1 multiplied by the number of days during which the offense continues, and the maximum fine that may be imposed and the maximum fine established under subsection 1 multiplied by the number of days during which the offense continues.
Okay, thank you. And by title, please? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I apologize. Sorry, Deputy. Okay, on the question then, all those in favor? Okay, anyone contrary-minded? Thank you, Deputy. Thank you. Okay, motion's carried, and by title. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Merrithew. Second by Councillor Mackenzie. Thank you. And, okay, on the question, all those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Deputy, thank you. Okay, motion's carried.
A bylaw respecting the feeding of deer within the city of St. John.
Okay, thank you. Next item, Common Clerk.
Next item, Your Worship, is 10.4 on your agenda. It's a bylaw respecting closing of roads, streets, or highways in the city of St. John, and it requires first and second reading, and I understand the city solicitor will provide some background.
Okay, thank you. City Solicitor.
Your Worship, this bylaw that you have before you arises out of the fact that the Municipalities Act that was in place for decades was replaced by the Local Governance Act. And as we've set out here in the report, and as you'll all recall, the process that the council would follow in determining whether or not to close the street was set out in the Municipalities Act. And the decision once made, if there was a decision made to close the street, that decision was evidenced by a bylaw which simply said Street X between its intersection with A and B is hereby stopped up and closed. With the repeal of the Municipalities Act and its replacement by the Local Governance Act, that process no longer was provided legislatively. The Local Governance Act now simply says that you can pass a bylaw dealing with street closings. So the purpose of the bylaw before you this evening is to assure the legitimacy of any future street closings that you may wish to pursue. The meat of the bylaw actually mimics the same process that was set out in the old Municipalities Act, with a single exception, and that exception has to do with the publications that was required as notice in the old legislation. It required it to be published by newspaper, and now we're, under the Local Governance Act, able to give notice by way of posting on our website. So that's the only material difference that will be seen in the process of stopping up and closing the street. So this is, in some respects, it's, you might call it housekeeping,
yeah.
but it's designed to assure that if you do choose to decide to close the street in the future, you're going to be on sound ground with respect to the process that you followed and the intended aim that you hope to achieve.
Okay, thank you. Question, Deputy?
Move first reading, but my
Okay.
question is...
So, sorry, just mover, do we have a seconder for first reading? Okay, Councillor Norton, thank you. Deputy?
It would come to council, do we still have a public hearing, like, or no?
It's
Or
the,
just-
you will experience no difference from what you've been experiencing for the last several decades. You know, someone makes the request, you'll decide whether you want to consider it, and if you do, you'll direct the clerk to undertake the appropriate advertising, and then if people wish to appear at the date that's established, they'll appear, you'll hear from them, and then you'll decide whether you want to close it. And if you do decide whether you want to close it, you will still adopt a bylaw that'll say, yes, we're going to close Street X between intersection with A and B. It'll be, you will really experience no difference in the process or your handling of a request of that sort.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Councillor Norton?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Sorry, just one second. Thank you. There you go.
Just through you to the city solicitor, is this, I take it other municipalities are doing the same thing. Essentially what we're doing is we're continuing the former practice through the Municipalities Act. Is there anything that we're not taking advantage of that perhaps we should to either I guess, reduce the administrative process to it, whether it's the number of readings or the administrative burden that it might have on the common clerk's office? Is there anything that we could be taking advantage of to make it more nimble than it already was?
Your Worship, I don't believe so. While the Local Governance Act didn't duplicate in its terms the process that you had to follow before you made your decision, it does say that you have to do it by bylaw. So the requirements for a bylaw remain the same under the Local Governance Act as they did the Municipalities Act. So there's still a requirement to give 3 readings to a bylaw. And I don't think, in answer to your question succinctly, I don't think there's anything that is provided potentially to shorten or streamline the process that...
Perfect. That's all I'm looking for, to just make sure that whatever's in place is as efficient and as lean as we can possibly make it. And if we've already done that, then no further questions from this councillor.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. I do have a question, City Solicitor. That's we have the more permanent street closures, but we also have what I would call temporary, for events, whether it be a festival or arts or a party of some kind on a street. This mechanism would provide for that.
Yes, the bylaw as it's written perhaps has the advantage that it specifically speaks of temporary or permanent closures.
Okay.
So yes, the opportunity, same options are still available.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yep. Okay, thank you. So we have first reading moved. All those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any. Thank you.
Second reading.
Okay, yep. Just 1 second, Deputy, please.
Bylaw respecting closing of roads, streets, or highways in the city of St. John.
Thank you.
Second reading.
Thank you, Deputy. Moved by the Deputy and seconded by Councillor Mackenzie. Thank you. On the question, all those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any. Thank you.
A bylaw respecting closing of roads, streets, and highways in the city of St. John.
Okay. Next item, please.
Item 11.1 on your agenda is a submission from Councillor Strobridge entitled Localized Flooding.
Okay, thank you. Just hit your button there for me, Councillor. There you are, Councillor Strobridge.
I'll just read out the motion. It's basically a referral motion. Direct the city manager to report back on this area's entire stormwater infrastructure, and specifically, I would ask that these things could be included in the report when it comes back. Whether or not a second holding pond should be constructed, assess if the current maintenance schedule and protocol is still adequate, provide surveyor results that show the holding pond and the subsequent ditches are still able to hold the amounts of water of their original design, go over the flood storage policy for that area and, has it maxed out for new construction. A little bit about Marsh Creek, whether it could even be widened or something there could be done. And want to go over if we should maybe look at developing a more aggressive approach to the current storm response protocol in this area, such as thawing the stormwater drains, and also look at snow removal on the existing holding pond that's there. There's just some points that I would ask could be covered.
Okay, thank you. That's the motion. Do we have a move? Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Merrithew. A seconder? Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you.
Okay.
So, I can read out the background just for the sake of the public, but it's really it's a referral motion. On January 23rd, 2019, the city experienced a rainstorm event that resulted in localized flooding that resulted in significant damage to residential homes and commercial businesses in East St. John, specifically around the Glen Falls and Golden Grove Road areas. The local stormwater systems and holding ponds became frozen and essentially blocked, thus preventing the water escaping, which has raised concerns with the condition of the holding pond on Golden Grove Road, and if it's still big enough to hold the amount of water that it was supposed to. And because these types of rain events complicated with snow and ice could easily reoccur because it's winter time, I think we should, I'd like to call for something to look over it all and maybe some new recommendations and some changes.
Okay, thank you. So just, so it's, in my view, it's very close to a referral.
Yes, that's
So,
right.
Right, so,
Yeah.
City Manager, I don't know if you have any comments, so sort of just on the referral itself, and then if that's how we're treating it, then.
Yeah, because there's
then
nothing to
typically we'll
debate
send it
tonight,
off,
because
yeah.
I'm asking for information.
City
to come back.
Manager? just a
Your
comment
worship,
here?
if I may, just, I understand the spirit and the intent, I believe. It's the wording of the motion to which I have some concern, and would just like to highlight that concern to council, in that if I take it the way it is written, this would require an in-depth engineering analysis to answer the questions properly, and then we are talking about a rather significant expense. I would suggest that perhaps by it being referred to the city manager, we come back to you in the future to provide council with an overview of our current city stormwater management, everything that has to do with it, with a view to enabling discussion on any possible improvements to it. But again, if I take it exactly as written here, I will have no choice but to engage a third-party contractor to come up and do a detailed analysis, the last one of which was done in 2008, I believe.
If I could speak to that.
Yeah, Councillor, yeah.
Thank you, City Manager. If you want to report on citywide, that's fine. I'm just specifically focusing on these areas. But the holding pond itself, I was talking to a city staff member through email before I came here to council with it, and I was told that they had looked at it a couple years ago. I don't know how invasive the surveying is, and they said a couple years ago we looked at it and it seems to be the way it's supposed to be, and I'm kind of like, well, it's well over 20 years old. To the best of my knowledge, it's never been re-dredged or dug out, so I mean, naturally it'll fill back in, so I just don't.
I think the spirit of, I guess, just Councillor, the spirit of, so the spirit of, I think, what you've proposed is, and I'm not trying to speak for the city manager, he can speak for himself, but is let the city manager take that away, come back with an overview, with the spirit of where we are, and some conversation around, to have discussion around this table, what could be enhanced, but without going out and commissioning a full engineering study in the first phase.
Yeah, no, I don't want us to, I mean, I'm just hoping, no, exactly. Yeah.
So, okay.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Your worship, to the councillor. Yes, that works for us. We will come back and explain to you what we currently have in place, what the inspections are of things like the pond and the removal of sedimentation, et cetera. We can explain all that. We can explain as to what we are looking at in the future. And at that point, if council would wish us to explore in greater depth, that would then probably trigger the detailed engineer analysis that would be required.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to treat that as a referral then. So folks on the referral on the question, all those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any. Thank you. Okay. Next item, Common Clerk.
Next item is 12.1 on your agenda, and it's a staff report entitled Love Your City Campaign.
Okay, and I believe the city manager is going to highlight this for us.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, it's me, simply because our communications manager is currently not available to brief you this evening. This is purely for information. The details are included within your package, but I wanted to do a verbal presentation as well, simply for not only your awareness, but the awareness of the public that might be listening this evening. As one of the deliverables in the population growth framework that was approved by council, the city communications team launched a Love Your City social media campaign that began last fall. The focus of the campaign is to inspire our citizens to tell their stories, to speak positively about the city, and to help encourage growth by doing so. The first phase of the campaign was last fall, and it was really an online photo sharing contest. Tremendous results, some 200 outstanding photos were posted onto the website, and prizes were awarded. This next phase, which has just begun, is more of a social media video of citizens and staff telling their stories and broadcasting that through our various social media activities. But there is also a radio calling contest sponsored by 97.3 The Wave and Country 94. where people can call in and tell their stories. This phase is expected to last approximately 3 to 4 months, and more details about it can be viewed on our website under My St. John.
Okay, thank you. Any very difficult questions for the city manager? No. Okay, thank you. Deputy, moved by the deputy, seconded by Councillor McKenzie, I believe. Just want to share one very quick note that I received, and on an expression of love of our city, and the themes are, something that we probably know, but we should celebrate far more often. The people, the beauty, the history, the generosity, the affordability. And I received a note from a person from Toronto, and they said, Mayor, I have to tell you that I've been following this post. And the analogy they used was, I felt like I was in a restaurant listening to two people beside me who were just absolutely in love, explaining how much in love they were with each other. And I just, through this feed and through this dialogue happening online, the pictures, the, generosity, the kindness, the care for one another, the restaurants, we're becoming world class now with amazing little coffee shops. They said, I want to come to St. John. It was just a really neat way that they communicated, and that can be two ways. It can be all this great stuff we love about our city and really encouraging, because each and every one of us here, staff, but also citizens, need to be ambassadors as we talk about attracting more people, growing the population, the number of jobs, growing the tax base. So it was just a really neat message to receive, that how someone in Toronto couldn't believe that a community would talk so positively about themselves. And I just wanted to share that with you. It was really kind of a neat, one of the best personal messages. It was that and some other messages I got about this campaign. So it was really, really great. Deputy, did you have a comment?
I just wanted to add something. I wanted to ask, do we have any extra cash in this campaign? Like, do we have some money that we could make up a couple billboards and say, one coming in from the east and one coming in on the west side, and say, we love our city, so everybody coming in will know we love our city, and then they'll encourage them to love our city. We should go out there and say ourselves that we love our city, to make other people, entice other people to love our city.
So I can't wait to hear the answer. There's two questions there. Do we have any extra cash?
Well, the cash, I need the cash for the billboards.
The billboards, city manager? Yeah.
But I just think the message should be positive, that we ourselves love our city, and then that will entice other people to love our city.
Your worship, to the councillor, on the question of do we have any extra cash, I need to take the Fifth Amendment on that one for right now. The short answer is we don't know yet. What we do owe to council is a holistic strategic communications plan for the city, the entire framework. And with that, how we are going to use the very few precious dollars that we do have. I applaud I understand the sentiment. I share your belief that we need to advertise more on the entrances into the city. I just cannot answer yet whether or not that will be affordable within the larger context of the strategic communications plan for the city.
I'll keep working on it.
Thank you, Deputy. Now you've inspired me. We do have 200 or 300 vehicles that I'm sure we could put we love our city on the back windows, right? I mean, Chief, could we get some we love St. John stickers on the windows?
If we tell the message that we love our city, then other people will come with us.
There we go. Excellent. I see a whole T-shirts now, Deputy, and all kinds of. Okay, thank you. On the question, receive and file, all those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Next item.
13.1 on the agenda, Your Worship, is the Growth Committee's report for 2019 expectation letters for economic development agencies.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, thanks. I'll just give you some quick highlights, folks, with my my growth committee, I guess, hat on, and as mayor, your growth committee did discuss these and has approved and recommended them to come to council. But for those here in the audience and those at home, just want to highlight a few elements of the letters. They're continuing to evolve. In 2017 is the first time we introduced the mandate letters. Really, the objective is to enhance and accelerate outcomes related to our growth in the three pillars: people, jobs, and growing the tax base. A couple of highlights from the letters, again, for those at home and the media, if they didn't read them. And the city's expectations are broad in nature to permit flexibility in the execution of the individual economic development agency's plans. In the end, though, you can appreciate that we hope to see an excellent return on investment, so to be great stewards of taxpayers' money, to foster a greater level of transparency and improve communication to build confidence with council and clearly demonstrate the return on investment. Enhanced reporting and accountability measures will help the city better understand how its investments in your organizations have generated progress on growth outcomes, and that would include the presentation of an annual plan with progress reporting and then obviously a year-end summary. So it'll give this council, the growth committee, and the members of the public an opportunity to be informed on how we've progressed. And these two letters tonight will be going to both the Economic Development, now Greater St. John, and to Develop St. John. So both on the jobs front and on the tax-based growth front. Okay, thank you. On the, sorry, Councillor, do you have a question? Councillor Matthew.
No, just a comment. Just want to thank the Growth Committee. I think it's look, it's just open and transparent, and trying to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck. So I'm not on the committee, but I do want to thank you very much for your service. It's a great motion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Okay, thank you. On the question, all those in favor? Okay, anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any. Thank you. Motion's carried. Next item, please.
Your Worship, 15.1 on your agenda is a ticket purchase request for 2019 Red Triangle Gala. Tickets are $100, or a table of 10 is $900.
I'll move that be referred to the common clerk, and he can, or his office can ask councillors if they wish to attend.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Councillor McKenzie. Thank you. On the question, all those in favor? Okay, anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any. Just, I will say, I guess for those at home that may not know, the recipients this year are Dr. Shelley Reinhardt and Jen Brown for the Leader to Watch. So congratulations, excuse me, to both of the recipients this year. Thank you. Okay, next item, Common Clerk.
15.2 on the agenda, another ticket purchase request. Children's Wish Foundation tickets are $125.
Again, I refer to the common clerk's office, and the common clerk can ask the questions or ask the council members if they wish to attend.
Okay, thank you. Moved by the deputy, seconded by Councillor McKenzie. Thank you. See no mics on the question. All those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any. Thank you. And last item, sir.
The final item, Your Worship, was the supplemental item distributed to council, and it would be 16.1 on your agenda, and it's for a public hearing at 175 Hilliard and Regent Street.
Okay, and the commissioner is going to speak to that. Thank you, Ms. Hamilton.
Yes, Your Worship, members of council. So this report, first of all, this report was missed in the uploading of the council's package, and certainly I would offer apologies on behalf of staff for the omission. It is a standard report that typically would go in your consent agenda, and the intent is to set public hearing dates for two planning application files, 175 Hilliard Street and 8688 Regent Street, for public hearing dates on Monday, April 8th.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Moved by the deputy, seconded by Councillor McKenzie, I believe that was. Okay, thank you. I don't see any questions. All those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Not seeing any? Okay, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor? Anyone contrary-minded? Have we ever had a lost vote on a motion to adjourn? Probably, right? So, okay, thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.
Well, it could always be the first time.
25 minutes. What can I do?
You were close.
Yeah, I wasn't confident. I did change.